Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video we start off the AFL Fantasy season. What are we starting it off? Almost 3 months out, 87 days out. So this will be the first team reveal, or just sort of a video in which I probably time-lapse sort of I already have my team up, but it'll be sort of me just contemplating some other stuff as I re-put it in for you guys, and then sort of also talking through why I've made some selections, especially as I've had some limited thoughts on how the early buys are going to go, and my strategy towards that, and my strategy overall. As you'll see, it's sort of similar to what I did last year with the premiums and stuff like that, and as well as just paying up for a lot of rookies, etc. like that, because I'm prepared to be able to realize the cash gen for rookies and hold and cost myself 30 or so points holding a premium, but realizing rookie cash gen, rather than last year you saw me get stuck with Yuland and guys like that are 60, 70k. If I can save 3 or 4 guys like that and be able to chuck them off, that 3 or 4 guys like that is like 200, 250k that I can easily gain, quite easily. And then that'll help me be able to not have to punt on, especially this year with the forward line. There's going to be quite a lot of guys here that you're going to have to punt on itself. So I'd rather be able to be firm with my premium midfielders, a lot of 1 million midfielders when we get to the upgrading season, rather than having to punt on that alongside punting on the forward line. So anyway, before we get into this video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know it, especially when I upload some content, as it'll be slightly out of whack with a lot of pre-recorded content that is like weeks in advance when I go away for a couple of days. So there won't be some like Supercoach stuff like that as well during that period, but I'll be keeping track of it all for you guys. But yeah, just put the notification bell on so you know when I actually upload, as my times are a little bit here and there. They're not perfectly in sync every day. But anyway, let's just get to the actual, time lapse now of me putting in this, sort of discussing it myself, etc. There'll probably be some background music over the top of this as I speed it up, as this will probably take 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll go through, I'll stop it, and then I'll go through and talk to you about why I've made such selections. But anyway, let's get into the time lapse. So back here after my team is sorted, and hopefully that wasn't the shortest time lapse for you guys, and you got some sort of at least enjoyment out of that. But anyway, let's go through and talk through the different options that I went for, and why I sort of went for them. And this should be a longer part of the video, but at least it will give you some insight into my thinking. This sort of team reveal, like I do with a lot of the both with the BBL, how I did it, as well as AFL Fantasy last year, you'll get multiple team reveals. This one sort of is just the general chuck everyone there, and then over time you'll have adjustments with who they play early, and then also sort of fixturing as well. That's sort of fixturing, but also and then the final team is sort of, then you'll have a team with the buys included as well, sort of a team that sort of focuses around fixing my initial team up with reference to the buys. And then also you'll have probably the last team reveal there'll probably be 3, 4, 5 of them. And then the last one is sort of, are there any adjustments based on preseason roles, etc. like that. But just getting one out early will be huge. And then you'll sort of see one probably once a month, and then potentially 2 in the sort of couple weeks leading up to it. And then there'll potentially be also another one that may have changes based on what happened in round 0 and the scores we got there. So anyway, let's jump into it. So first off is Wanganeen Malira, and this one, some will say that it is sort of a little bit reactionary to last year, but I thought he did really well last year and did tail off a little bit in the end, but his early sort of form was quite ridiculous, and I think he can easily be with him and Sinclair. Like, look at this. His early form wasn't actually that good, but then he just came to this spot here where he had pretty constant scores. And then if you take out like a couple of 50 games here, he is easily going to clear, I reckon, sort of that 100 barrier next year. And also, I think St Kilda are not going to be the best team next year. So I reckon there is a chance for him to easily jump up towards that sort of 100, 105, as he will get another, I reckon, 2 or 3 potential kickouts per game. And that'll just help him. And I just hope that St Kilda play that sort of kick marky game that they do. They did quite a lot last year, as he really does profit off of it and can have 20-point spurts in like a matter of a minute or two quite easily. So hopefully they do that, and he's the one that profits off of it. But as an underpriced guy, and you will see that I didn't go for Dacos, as if we look at Dacos here, and the main reason I didn't go for Dacos is just, and I know that we did this same exact thing last year. There was a massive tag threat in round 2 and round 4, as well as having the bye in round 5, and also having Grundy in my side. So this is where I have sort of thought about it slightly with the early buys, is Grundy being on the early buy and potentially trading him. I don't want to have to be trading both Grundy and Dacos in that round. And there is a potential that I hold Grundy, and I don't know exactly yet. But as of now, I'm probably going to fade Dacos at the moment and just hope that he gets his round 0 against GWS, he has a tough game. And then round 1 against Sydney, he has a tough game. And then we can pick him up potentially post-buy or something like that. Pick him up for around about that sort of, I reckon even 920, 930 he could drop to quite easily. So hopefully, but obviously he is one that we could just adjust, because he goes 150 or 160 against GWS, and then you're just like, he's going to get away from us way too quickly here, even with the early buy. And, you know, because he could easily jump up to 1.1 mil. So at the moment, I don't have him in, but there could be a restructure where I sacrifice like a Fisher or something like that, and Fisher down to a rookie just to get Nick Dacos in, because he's going to be so valuable. But at the moment, I don't have the top of the line guys in there because there's so much value elsewhere. Hayden Young, we saw that midfield role. If he goes into the midfield, he'll average 105, and 105 for him will be huge. I mean, he didn't get off to the best start. We saw that last year. He didn't get off to, I don't believe he, look at the fixtures, match stats, 118 in the first game, but then 52, 80, 78, 83, 77, sorry. He didn't get off to a good start, and that sort of held him back, but then you had some really good form here. And as you can see here, 119, 102, 91, 94 in a pretty difficult spot rounds. You can see here a couple of difficult rounds here, but you can just see that huge tackling numbers. If he can get his disposals up, which he should be able to as they get more accustomed to him in the midfield, especially with O'Meara starting to fade a little bit out, I reckon. He could have just that really good hybrid role that we see out of like Sinclair, as well as like Dawson as well, that sort of bigger bodied. Well, Dawson should be a type of guy that you can sort of reference hopefully Hayden Young off of. And if he does anything of what Dawson did last year, that'll be huge. So just having him there on potential, and we'll see his preseason role, but there's most likely he'll be one of the guys there. Himmelberg, massive placeholder. I don't know what's going to happen with him. You saw me, hopefully you saw a little bit of the calculator out there. Himmelberg, when he's in the defender role, has a 79 average. If you take out the injury game that he had last year, it goes up to 83, and plus 11 isn't the worst. And then also you see his last 3 of 94. So hopefully a permanent defender role, and especially playing against Collingwood, then North Melbourne, then the Eagles, he can just absolutely lap it up early. And then potentially he gets up to like, who knows, potentially 750, 800k. And then I just swap him with Coleman is sort of the thought I have at the moment, because Coleman will be off his bye. And Coleman, if you look here, his early fixtures has Carlton, Freo, then the bye. So he won't gain too much cash. So the most I see him up is like 700k. So potentially there's like 50, 60k gained out of going from Himmelberg to him. And then he's got Collingwood, North, Melbourne, Geelong, GWS. He's got a really nice sort of run in, and then he has that round 12 bye. I need to look at the byes again, which we'll get to in a later video, but I think that he could be a nice one to have, and then you see him the rest of the way. But yeah, he'll be definitely one that I think can make that jump up. Then you've got Heath Chapman, and this one I think isn't being talked about enough. Only 4.6% ownership. He played 3 games for 60. I think with Hayden Young moving into the midfield, most likely, I think he's one of the ones that could really generate something. And I mean, we haven't really seen it at the AFL level for Heath Chapman, but I mean, he was touted as sort of that ball moving sort of defender. And I mean, so I think he can do that, and I think that's the role we'll get to see in the preseason. I'm just hoping he doesn't pop like a 160 or something like that, because if he pops a 160 and does like an Errol Goulden effectively, it's going to be annoying, because this is a guy that I sort of had in my team from the word go, basically. So he's for the last like couple months just sort of a guy that I knew I was going to have. So it would be annoying if he's sort of a pod that goes begging in preseason. Zach Williams, another guy heavily owned, and rightfully so. I think he's so unders with that two or three injury seasons. I mean, 2022, I don't know if he played. 71, but he's priced at what? Let me just do a quick little math. I want to say he's priced around 48 or so. Yeah, he's priced at 48.5, I believe. So 48.9, sorry. So he's priced basically 49, and he averaged 70 a couple years ago, averaged 65, averaged 92. If he gets, say we go conservative and he averages 75, that's still plus 26. That is exactly what we're wanting out of a guy at his price range. So if we go conservative and say he even averages 71 that he did a couple years ago, he should be able to do exactly what we want out of the Carlton guys. But Carlton have been known to sort of kick it around a little bit and chip it around a little. So I think Zach Williams taking over that kick-out role could easily average 75, 80, and plus 25 to 30 will be huge. So I think he's gonna be a guy that you can hold through the buys and just play Curtin over him, who Curtin will get a 50. So you sack 20 points for a trade. For saving a trade, I think is huge, and saving him early as he has that early game against Brisbane. So he has 2 games where he can massively build up cash, basically. And then some people will be trading him in as he'll go up potentially 60k before you even know it. So yeah, he's one that's in there. Caulfield, I think changing clubs will get, or have, just look at this fixtures that he has to start. He's got Melbourne, Gold Coast, West Coast, Geelong, Essendon, St Kilda, Freo, Hawthorn, Richmond. I mean, he doesn't really face the hard sides until late on here, where you really, for the first like 10 or so rounds, he plays what realistically Melbourne and then Geelong are his toughest games here. I'm taking that definitely. I think he could easily profit here, and being priced at around about that 38 or so range, I reckon. He is going to be so valuable in my opinion. Yeah, priced at 39.6. I think he could go 70, 75 here as a player. I mean, we saw a couple years ago, I want to say he went huge. So I think he's going to be one that goes huge again. 2022 doesn't show. Did 2021 show? 16 games, 61. And I think he's grown from that 17 games, 62. 59 here. So he's got plus 20 upside at least. And I think he's grown into a better player in that time, as well as he's in a chippy system in the Western Bulldogs, so I think he could easily go 70 there, and 70 conservatively is sort of a plus 30. Curtin on the bench, happy to have him on the bench rather than D6, but if push comes to shove, he may go to D6, as I may have to upgrade Wanganeen Malira up to Nick Dacos if Wanganeen Malira Nick Dacos goes like 140, 150, as he might get to a point where he's unattainable and just needs to be held through his bye, etc., as we talked about earlier. So Curtin may go on field, but hopefully he doesn't, as that would be the plan at the moment. And Roberts is just a placeholder for any 200k guy that debuts, but I do think there is a role there potentially with the lack of running halfbacks there that were for Essendon pre-draft. I mean, they did draft, I think, him and was it Luau or someone else there that was... so they did draft, I think, 2 running backs from memory. So he potentially won't get a role, but their backup there is so slim, and so I do think they need that, and that's one of the areas that they should be working on. So I think he does get potentially run in early. Butters here, he's just there because he has the West Coast game. I think I tried to highlight it in the time lapse there. West Coast Richmond, he is just going to be so valuable. And we saw that last 3 of 112, last 5 of 110 priced at basically a premium price at 900k. If he does 112 for the year, that's priced at around about what Bont was doing, I believe. Was Bont doing 112? Bont was doing 117 at 1.06. So that was around Dawson's price. Yeah, Dawson merit sort of price range. So yeah, super happy to have him in the side. Davis Juniak, if he's fit, will be absolutely huge. I mean, he's got GWS, Freo, Carlton. He has a tough-ish run, but his LDU, if he's fit, he'll be fine. Jack Steele as well, another guy, and I actually have these priced around the wrong way. But Jack Steele, hopefully he can sort of get back to the form that he is. But I mean, he is just a placeholder at the moment. If I actually go to all prices, 800k, you'll see there are some other guys that are potentially in the mix there. There's potentially room for like a Tom Stewart and then someone else, maybe Tom Stewart, and then we go down to like a 600k guy in this spot here. With 600k, as I believe there is some value, like not a Keys, potentially. Actually, need to swap this to a midfielder, but there are some ways around it if I don't like the look of Steele. But I think Steele could be one that does really jump. Looking here, potentially go to, if I have the room, to like a Simpkin or something like that, or potentially down to maybe a breakout of like a Ward or someone like that, or potentially Kewitt as well. There are so many guys here that potentially have that breakout sort of role. Bruin should have that breakout actually as well, so he's one that's on the list, as well as Horn Francis with that West Coast game and just being a 3rd-year player now, so he should be one that you look at as well. Then we move on to Sam Walsh, and Sam Walsh is here. He does have that early buy, which will suck, but hopefully we have like Sharp who can go 70 or something like that in that buy, and I burn myself 40 points for having Sam Walsh, who could easily go 120 with the way he is going at the moment. We saw his last 3 were horrific, but then he really spiked in the finals, where I think he averaged something like 120, 125 across the 3 games there. So I think he'll have high ownership. I think he'll be one of the highest owned guys that has the early buy. Then we go to Jai Newcomb, and I think this guy has the potential. Look at his last 3 of 116, last 5 of 102. I think he has the potential to go 108, 109, and that'll be plus 16, which is exactly what I'm looking for out of the premium guys. So yeah, that's why I have him. Sardis, another guy that is sort of that placeholder at the moment. He potentially will swap with Fisher, depending on Fisher's role. We've seen some worry about Fisher, with also there being Sheasel and McKersh's apparently going down back, or half-back sort of midfield type of role. So there is potential for that to be clogged and Fisher not to get that role. But I expect actually Sheasel to go up forward this year, as I think he has sort of blended into the game really well. So I think he can now shift to his more natural forward role, but we'll see in pre-season how that works out and if Fisher is actually an option. But I do think Sardis is definitely an option for the midfield of the Dons. So he will go in at that either M6 or F4 sort of role. Then you have McKercher here, midfielder. He's just top talent, as well as Sanders. Sanders as well has been really improved his sort of job security, I reckon, now with Bazza Smith going down, even though Bazza Smith is a winger most likely. It's just that this sort of midfielder, Bont, McRae, also who else is in there? Libba is in there as well. I hope that they just kick out Caleb Daniel and give Sanders that role now, as well as McRae. I think they can all get, I think McRae and Sanders can get 40 to 45% midfield time, CBA time, and be fine. And Caleb Daniel can run the back line, and we can pick Caleb Daniel up after that preseason. But Caleb Daniel could also be one that we look at over the likes of Flanders, because Flanders has that early bye. He's got 3 games and then the bye, and then we can just pick up Flanders post bye for like a Rochelle, or potentially just getting him up quickly, as he'll be 900k very quickly. But anyway, and then Sharp on the bench, we've seen him before do well. I believe he did decently at Gold Coast back in like 2021. 9 games, 71. He's priced at like 30 or something like that, 31, 32. So he has potentially 38, 39 points of upside. So just really, really looking forward to seeing how he does and the role he gets. But I think he just gets onto that Freo wing, to be honest, or potentially even halfback role. With his speed. So I think he definitely gets games there. And then Jai Clark, I think he's going to be part of the revolutionary sort of push in the Geelong midfield. So I think he gets a game there, and that's why I have him on the bench, and I think he's going to be a really good asset. Moving on to the ruck line, and I have gone super cheap here. And the only thing that's going to be a problem here is a potential round 1 injury or something like that. But if Brodie Grundy can get away really, really quickly, and Toby Conway on the bench definitely playing, it should help me. It should help, I guess, just having those guys there. And if Tristan Sherry goes down, then I have Toby Conway to play there, and Toby Conway can fill in the bye. And it may mean if Toby Conway can get if he can average 60 or 70 in the buys, with it being best 18, I might be happy to hold Brodie Grundy and not trade him. And again, that means that I'm able to filter through these sort of the rookies and get that cash gen realized, because that'll be huge early season, is getting those upgrades up very early and figuring out the buy plan. But if Toby Conway is good enough, he did a 48, which would price, if he did a 48, he'd be priced at, quickly, let me just run it here. If he did a 48, he'd be priced at 430, and I think he's better than 48. I think he's a 65-70 type of guy, and 65-70 is a potential of 580k, which is 270k price rise, and 270k is basically the difference between me being able to get, when he maxes out, which should be around round 8, round 9, unless he really pushes on, that should be able to get me up from Cherry up to like an English or something like that, as Cherry should be able to get himself up to 700, 800k, and then that last little push towards English, even though I think English could potentially go down quite early if he doesn't get on top of that break even. Then you have McRae with Basil Smith going down. It should help him, and hopefully a push out of Caleb Daniel out of the midfield. It should help him get some midfield time. Flanders, I think he gets that midfield time that we saw late on in the year, and that 120 last 3, 111 last 5, price at 89. Any forward that's got any upside is pretty much warranted at this point. With the forward line that we've got, there's potential guys. You go for guys like Kerno, Heaney and stuff like that, and Tex Walker if they get the fixture run that we hope. But Flanders at that price should be huge upside. And then Rochelle, I think he potentially gets into the Adelaide midfield. I think we saw spurts of it last year, but I think we just saw him sort of his mind played tricks on him, and he got into his own head basically, and that's why I think he didn't have the best season. But I think if he gets that midfield time, could do really well. But we'll just see how it goes, and he is just a placeholder at this point. But he potentially could be downgraded and stuff like that as we find that forward. This whole forward line is sort of, other than Reed and potentially McRae, I think everyone is expendable depending on how they look pre-season, etc. But this is the first team reveal, so we'll have to see how it goes. Fisher, again, hopefully he gets that role that we want, but at 623k, he does need to have some upside, but I think he could get some upside at North, given how bad they are, and if he gets that halfback role, he will be really profitable. Harley Reid, it's Harley Reid, nothing more needs to be said, basically. And then if I actually do that because of pricing, because I'm such painstaking about that. Finn McRae as well, 310k. Hopefully he just produces. And so, hopefully he's able to produce at that F5, F6 role when Harley Reid overtakes him, because I know Harley Reid will outscore him. But hopefully he's able to get games early and get that cash gen early. Else we may have to go Sean Manor at F6 and downgrade McRae to another guy, and use the cash elsewhere to potentially have to go from Jerry up to someone bigger. but we'll see with that, as the problem with Gorn is that he does have that early buy as well, so that will be annoying. But maybe we just disregard early buys with a lot of these guys being 18 guys. And if you look at it now, if you say that with this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I've already got 14 guys that I'm confident about scoring. And then you have Rochelle and Fisher, make that 16. So 16 guys, and then you've got Harley Reid, who I'm pretty confident about, McCurch, and I got the profitable rookies who don't really have that buy early as well. So I've already got 18 guys that I'm pretty happy about. Scoring wise, so maybe if we have Sammy Walsh and Zach Williams off, will be maybe a little bit iffy. So that round I may have to look at that in the future about that round where Sammy Walsh is off. But other than that, like other rounds, I can potentially hold a premium or a sort of that 600k guy that has that early buy, and that'll be fine, as you've got worthy guys that can come in and do the job. But I may tinker around my team and try and find an option that limits the amount of early buys that we've got. But anyway, that pretty much is the video, as I've got Dersma and then Cooper Simpson, who I think could have an early game just with the way he sort of mocked, with the way he did in his sort of draft lead up and the way he sort of turned out in preseason. I think he's one that could get an early game for Freo. But anyway, on the wing, I would think it would be, or that sort of half forward. But that pretty much is the video there. Hopefully you enjoyed the sort of different makeup of that video and how it sort of ran. But I think it's going to be one of the longer videos on the channel. But hopefully you sort of get my insight into what I'm looking at for this AFL Fantasy season. And I'll see you guys in the next videos. Bye, guys.